and welcome. My name is David Whitehead, and this is my last video for the subject of Intercultural Pragmatics. In today's presentation, I'll be analyzing the website of Famosa. Famosa is a Spanish toy manufacturing company, and basically what they've done is they've designed a website, which was originally written in Spanish, of course, and then they figured out they wanted to go international. So what they did is to directly translate the Spanish into English, hoping that by using English as a lingua franca, they would be able to reach a broader audience. What I'll be doing in this presentation is analyzing how they've done this process, and I will propose a better solution. The way in which today's presentation will go is, first of all, I'll explain the system I've used to carry out this exercise. Then I'll briefly show you what the original text looks like in English, while going through some of the things I've changed. Then I'll show you my final version, explaining some of the things I've changed. And finally I will finish with my last thoughts on how you should approach the idea of designing a website. So, first of all, I decided to divide the work into two parts. The first thing I did, similarly to the previous oral report, is to check out what they had written in English and correct the language. And the second part is, based on my analysis of the first part, propose my own version. Now here's the key I used during my analysis to mark the things I was going to change. So in red we find mistakes in the English, things that there's no question about them, they're simply wrong, so they had to be changed. In yellow I found things that are technically correct in English, but they were sort of awkward in the context they were put, so they also needed to be changed. And finally in green I've marked the things that should be culturally accommodated, meaning there are no linguistic problems, but the text was so obviously Spanish that it may disturb readers. In italics I also include my personal comment, which of course I will do aloud in this oral report. So, very briefly, going through some of the mistakes in the language. In this section, we see, since our beginnings in Spain, up until now, Famosa products can be found. Now, the first mistake here is that if you use up until now, this expression already implies since, so there's no need to put both. Now, if you are going to use up until now, you should put the other particle in the past, could be found. So, as I had a doubt, I checked the original Spanish version to see what they had done. And they had used hoy en día. So what I did was to change up until now and to make it nowadays Famosa products can be found. This was simply quite a funny mistake. They used the verb thrive, which is what we use when we're referring to plants that are trying to grow, instead of strive. I mean, I understand the mistake because they're spelled similarly, but they mean completely different things. Strive means to make an effort to improve. Now going into some of the linguistically correct things but that are iffy in the text, we have this first example: thousands of dreams let Famosa go wherever imagination goes. Now this is a very strong, passionate statement, right? Thousands of dreams let Famosa go, etc., etc. Now, if you're making such an emphatic comment, you should be coherent. So, you would need to use the particle are. Dreams are what let Famosa, blah blah blah. In this other example, well, they use the referent children on programs directed toward our best customers, the children. Now the children, I mean, technically it's correct, but it sounds better without the article. In this other example, however, this was quite shocking. as if you see here, it says the children who are the main focus of Famosa's activities, and among them those with the greatest need. It's sort of confusing. We're not quite sure what the pronouns are referring to, because obviously the who are refers to children, but then we have among them, which will probably refer to the previous noun, which is activities, but this doesn't make much sense. And if we continue reading, we'll find that it says those with the greatest needs, and this definitely doesn't make any sense if referred to activities. So we know that the three pronouns were actually substituting children. So to avoid this problem altogether, I simply repeated the word children to make sure that the referent was clear, and the final product was among these children. And finally, moving on to some of the things that needed to be culturally accommodated, we have the expression to bring joy to children. Now there's nothing wrong with that expression, it's simply that it sounds very expressive, or in terms of value dimensions, too feminine. Now, in terms of quality, in this part it says quality. We base our activities and competitiveness on quality. Now, they use quality twice, so this is very redundant and it uses too many words which are unnecessary. And finally, we believe that safety is an excellent lever for improvement. Once again, it's information that is unnecessary, and they use a metaphor which is very expressive and doesn't even really sound that good. So I removed it altogether. This is my final version of the website, and basically what I've done, as you can see, I haven't changed the amount of content so much, but what I did was to change the idea of the website. So rather than having a long scrolling window, I created a menu which you can click to go directly to what you want to look at. Because as a browser of the internet, I feel that it might be quite annoying to have to read through all the different things until you find what you actually want. So, to finish this, I'll give you some of my ideas. If you're going to use English as a lingua franca, and you don't have a particular specific audience, I would simply try to make the text standard, which is also what I did in my previous oral report. And finally, the presentation of a website can determine whether or not a potential client will take their time to check you out. And this is the final point I was making in terms of the menu versus the long scrolling window. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed and that you learned lots of things.